Today I'll be working in my workbook called The Jews Returned from Exile, which is my first workbook on the book of Ezra. And it's just going to cover chapters 1 through 3, excerpts from chapter 4, chapters 5 and 6, and chapter 1 of Haggai. And if we wanted to look real quick at the timeline of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. The first book, my first workbook, covers Ezra 1 through 6, which is before the book of Esther. So basically, timeline-wise, it's the first half of Ezra, then you hit Esther, then the second book of Ezra is here, and then you have Nehemiah's story here. And notice here that it covers quite a long time. Zerubbabel comes about 535 BC, somewhere in there, and we're going to have another group. Ezra leads the second group to Jerusalem, now see in the second book. So he's going to lead a second group. And we don't even hear about Ezra in the first group, okay? So Ezra leads the second group around 460 BC. So you notice it's quite a number of years after the first group came. And that's when Ezra is there. That's why we can see Ezra in Nehemiah's books. It is feasibly possible for him to be in the books of Nehemiah. And many people say that Ezra actually wrote the books of Nehemiah. Now they are written differently. So we think that Nehemiah had like a diary or a journal that Ezra would have written out of. But anyway, and then we talked about the prophets last chapter 2. We're in maybe more than that. Where did we read? Actually, we're in chapter 4 right now. Okay, so in the first chapters, the first one has to do with the exiles coming back to Jerusalem with Zerubbabel. 50,000 exiles come back to Jerusalem. Then they start rebuilding the altar and the temple foundation, and then they get stopped. The Samaritans, which are a mixed breed, they're in that area, had asked to help with the building of the temple, and the Jews would not let them help build it. They got upset, and so they caused enough commotion with the Jews that the Jews stopped building the temple. But then God intercedes. He says, hey, you want to be blessed for all your crops and your food and all these things, but I'm not blessing those. They're going to be hard unless you get back to building my house. And Haggai also talks about that as well. And Haggai is the one that helps us actually timeline this precisely. So now we're going to be in chapter 4. Okay. Samaritan's letter to King Darius. So they had originally hassled the Jews so much they stopped building the temple. And so, but then God interceded and the Jews starts building the temple again. So now they sent a letter to King Darius, Ezra 5, 2 through 17. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, son of Jozadak, set to work to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem. And the prophets of God were with them, supporting them. So everybody's in one accordance again. They have ignored the opposition from the Samaritans, and they got started on the temple again. What do you remember about Zerubbabel? Well, he is the prince. He is from the line of Judah, and his father was king before him, or his grandfather, rather. What Jewish tribe is he from? The king of Judah. What office does he hold? He's presently governor, which means that he's before Nehemiah was governor as well, but so it'd be before then. What do you remember about Joshua? He is from the tribe of Levi, and he holds the position of high priest. Who caused the building of the temple to be stopped once? The Samaritans. Why did these people want to stop the building of the temple? Because they were beyond me. And since the Jews wouldn't allow them, they were trying to make problems. Who got the people restarting in the building of the temple? God. What prophets are preaching and encouraging the people? Haggai and Zechariah. At that time, Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates went to them and asked, who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? They also asked, "What are the names of those who are constructing this building?" We told them the names of the men who were constructing this building, but the eye of their God was watching over the elders of the Jews, and they were not stopped until a report could go to Darius and his reply be received. So the Trans-Euphrates meant west of the Euphrates. Tattenai was governor of the regional area of Judah that Judah was in. As he was a regional governor, Tattenai would have been a very powerful man. Shethar-bozenai was probably his assistant. Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, would have been under Tattenai. Okay. What is Tattenai governor of? The Trans-Euphrates, which is all the area west of the Euphrates. Tattenai had thought the building of the temple had been stopped, and now it started once again. He asked two questions. They are, who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? And what are the names of those who are constructing the temple, this building? Who was watching over the elders of the Jews? God, the eye of God. What did Tattenai eventually have to do? He had to send a letter to Darius in order to get anything happening. They were not stopped until a report could go to Darius. This means Tattenai could not stop them until he got a reply back from King Darius. And you realize this is not email time. This letter would have taken a while. It had to be hand delivered to Darius, and then the response brought back. This is the copy of the letter that Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-bozenai and their associates, the officials of Trans-Euphrates, sent to King Darius. The report they sent him read as follows. To King Darius, cordial greetings. The king should know that we went to the district of Judah, to the temple of the great God. The people are building it with large stones and placing the timbers in the walls. The work is being carried on with diligence and making rapid progress under their direction. Who all sent the letter? Tattenai and Shethar-bozenai, their associates. Who did this group call? What did this group call the temple? The temple of the great God. What is the temple being made out of? Large stones and timbers. The temple is mostly made out of stone, however, timber is used as beams for support. The work is being carried on with diligence and is making rapid progress under their direction. Rapid progress shows the builders had really taken Haggai's preaching to heart. We questioned the elders and asked them, who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it? We also asked them their names so that we could write down the names of their leaders for your information. Who had authorized the Jews to rebuild the temple? That'd be Cyrus. Who appointed the king in number 1 to have the temple rebuilt? God. Who are the names of the two main leaders in charge of the building? Zerubbabel and Joshua. When the Samaritans successfully got the rebuilding to stop, who got it restarted? God. What was the purpose of this letter to Darius? To see if they can get the building of the temple stopped again. With God on the side of the Jews and the rebuilding, do you think the Samaritans are going to be able to stop the rebuilding? Why or why not? I would say no, that they would be able to wouldn't be able to stop the rebuilding. This is the answer they gave us. We are the servants of God of heaven and earth. We are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, one that the great king of Israel built and finished. But because our ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaldean, king of Babylon, who destroyed this temple and deported the people to Babylon. Who did the Jews say they were servants of? God of heaven and earth. Who was the great king that had originally built the temple? Actually, the great king is King Solomon. Why was the temple destroyed? Our ancestors angered the God of heaven. Who gave the Jews into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar? God. What human destroyed the temple? Nebuchadnezzar and his troops, actually. Where did the Jews get deported to? In this case, the Jews of Judah got deported to Babylon. Now the Jews of Israel got deported to Assyria. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree to rebuild this house of God. He even removed from the temple of Babylon the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to the temple in Babylon. And King Cyrus gave them to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he had appointed governor. And he told him, take these articles, go and deposit them in the temple in Jerusalem, and rebuild the house of God on its site. Who issued the decree to rebuild this house of God? Cyrus, king of Babylon. What did he have removed from the temple in Babylon? The gold and silver articles of the temple of the house of God. Who did he give these things in number 2 to? To Sheshbazzar. What did he point the person in to Sheshbazzar to be? Governor. So this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the house of God in Jerusalem. From that day to present, it has been under construction, but it is not yet finished. Now, if it pleases the king, let a search be made in the royal archives of Babylon to see if King Cyrus did in effect issue a decree to rebuild this house of God in Jerusalem. Then let the king send us his decision in this manner. From this passage, who laid the foundations of the God in Jerusalem? Sheshbazzar. Recheck Ezra 3:8-10. Is this person's name listed at all? No, it is not. There are many scriptures that point to Sheshbazzar and Zerubbabel being the same person, and this is one of them. Sheshbazzar is suggested to be his Persian name, and Zerubbabel being his Jewish name. What did these Samaritans ask King Darius to do? To check the archives to verify if indeed this was a decree. Do you think the Samaritans believe King Cyrus actually made this decree? No, they don't believe that it actually was, this decree was made, because they don't want it to be true. So we come to the crossword again. This is the end of the chapter here. So who is Joshua, the son of Jozadak? Who is the governor of Trans-Euphrates? Tattenai. We are the servants of the God of heaven. Who issued the decree to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem? Cyrus. So one down. Who is Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel? The temple is being made with large stones and placing timbers in the walls. So that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.